Well, this is Greg Selber Valley, and this is Jake Berry, and this is the show, and it's about to get really, really fascinating, Jake. This is the week we've been waiting for.
Yeah, this is the first time we're actually going to get a chance to see some arguably the best teams in the Valley go head-to-head.
Well, you know, it's really a battle of unbeatens if you consider the fact that after Johnson, Harlingen's won out, and that Johnson team has ended up being very competitive. They just lost to Reagan last week, but they're a fine team. So it's probably the four best 5A teams plus McAllen, who is 8-0. I don't remember a season in which we had this many unbeaten teams this late in the season in 5A. Do you?
Yeah, I can't remember. And you know, I've been covering this for about 8 years with you. I can't remember it being this competitive. I guess I don't know if it's the rest of the districts are just, you know, the rest of the teams of the district aren't so good, or they're just that good.
I think it's a combination platter. I think that we're looking at a handful of teams that have a chance, if they keep on going, to be known as some of the best teams of the past 10 or 15 years. But I also feel like there's kind of a top-heavy, bottom-heavy effect to the districts where a couple of great teams and the rest of them are not struggling per se, but certainly not in the league of the Harlings and the South and all that. So one way or the other, whatever you think about that arrangement, we've come to the week when there are two of the best games of the year. In fact, I think they're the two best games of the year.
Yeah, I think the Sharyland Edinburgh North game, which is on Thursday, I think that one is going to be, I mean, that's for all the marbles in 35A. But I think it will solidify the best team in the Valley for this side of the Valley.
Well, I mean, if you win that ball game, then you can argue that you're the best team in the Valley. Now, Harlingen South and the Bird Bowl, an equally great game, and that's the next day. I can only say that I'm gratified to be able to go to both of those ball games unless I get hit by a car. And I got news for you, man. They're going to pull my wheelchair up there at the end zone. I'm going to watch them games no matter what. I'll watch them from on high if I need be.
Yeah, and you know, if you're at Mac High, though, you're actually in a nice spot this week. You get to actually look and, you know, kind of kick back. You know, you're not playing one of the tougher teams in the Valley like you did last week.
I'll tell you, McAllen continues to amaze. I don't even think it's that amazing anymore. I think that's a fine football team that continues to do everything right. They win the close games. So the upshot of today's edition of the show is we've got some great teams, and most of them are going head-to-head, and we just can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be a good week. You know, and those aren't the only games this week, but those are our marquee games.
Well, every week it seems like we've had a couple of games that we focus on. I've actually been waiting on this pumpkin spice game since the summer. When I first figured out that they were going to play on Halloween, I figured, well, what happens if they both come in undefeated? Well, they're undefeated. What happens if at the Bird Bowl those teams are leading their districts? Well, they're leading their districts. It couldn't be better. This is why we do this, man. For every game that we sit through with 127 penalties, it's 48-0. These are going to, well, I exaggerate. Mercy. Yeah. And more on that later, the mercy rule. But I'm telling you, this is what we've been waiting for, and I think it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be a good week.
Well, let's look at the week that was. Before we get to the week that will be, I feel like we're on a Christmas Carol. Is it Ebenezer Scrooge, the ghost of Christmas past? Let's look at the things that happened. As always, Carlos Robledo is our man on the spot. We got a bunch of film crew guys doing all the right things. Check out the highlights, and we'll come back.
We start off in Westlaco, taking on Mac High. Fred Holver of the Bulldogs to Kevin Hilgenfield. 67 yards for the touchdown. McAllen was up 26-7. Westlaco scores twice in the fourth quarter. Mac High hangs on to a 26-21 victory. PSJA versus San Benito. File Patino. 86-yard run here. He had 2 touchdowns, 215 yards on 13 carries. Bears win 27-10. Westlaco East and Memorial. Trevor Spates, a big game for him. 5 touchdowns, 289 yards rushing. A bigger game for Saul Cuellar. Also 5 touchdowns, but he rushed for 342 yards. This game was tied 56-56. Until Darren Rivas hits Gilbert Urbina with 30 seconds left in the contest. That's the winning score each side. They win it 63-56. Edinburgh North versus Edinburgh's Robert Vela High School. This was all North. Matt Whiteside, 281 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. Cougars win 37-14. Economides versus Edinburgh High, a close game here. Luis Alvarez hits Austin Reina. Econ leads 7-0. Carlos Obregon ties it up here in the second quarter. Jags with the winning score. Doroteo Areola hits Ricardo Rodriguez 50 yards. 14-7, Economides. Harlingen versus Porter. Brandon Garza having an all-valley type year. 211 yards passing. Cards clinch a playoff spot, winning 73-0. Harlingen South versus Lopez. Jaden Taylor, 191 yards on 18 carries. Look at that nice little spin move. We had to watch it twice. 4 touchdowns for him. Hawks win it by a final score of 47-14. Ed Calchelsa at Mercedes for first place in 32-4. Diego Garcia with the interception here to give the Jackets a 20-10 lead as he finds the end zone. That's in the fourth quarter. Mercedes scores here at Rene Presas to Joshua Garza, but EE holds on to win it by a final score of 20-17. PSJA Southwest versus Roma Orly Solis. Who else running wild here to increase the Gladiator lead? Roma wins by a final score of 49-35. And the number 1 team in the Valley, Port Isabel versus Hidalgo. JJ Gonzalez, watch him run here. 66 yards for the touchdown, 190 yards for him on 8 carries. PI wins 41-0. Those are your highlights from Week 8.
Edinburgh North will be the home team on Thursday at Cat Stadium in Edinburgh. Sharyland is coming to town, the defending champion. You got the best offense in the Valley with the Rattlers, the best defense in the Edinburgh North Cougars. How do you see, what are we going to see on Thursday? Us and about 8,000 other people.
Well, I think if you ask all the so-called experts,
the gurus.
Yeah, they're going to tell you that you're getting an evenly matched game, you know. But North has a very good defense. I think what you're going to see is that Sharyland, they don't tend to run a lot. So what you're going to see is Edinburgh North's going to have to find a way to make them run the ball. Yeah,
I feel like that's a pretty good assessment. So in other words, does Edinburgh North stick to its base defense, or does it scheme to stop a team that likes to get on the perimeter, throw in space, and go up and down the field? The video game, as we call it.
Because, you know, in this district, I don't think they've been the hardest matchup. Edinburgh North's had some close games, but Sharyland relatively hasn't had any games besides the early Madonna game where they've actually, and that was because of turnovers, that it was a close game. So I think this is going to be one of those games that if North can do kind of what Donna did the other week, you know, they need turnovers. They've got to force Diego Chrysler to throw the ball, but throw it short where they can actually make plays. Because the further the ball is downfield, the harder Sharyland is to stop.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'll tell you this much. I think that, you know, we ask, is Edinburgh North going to do anything special for Sharyland because it's a different type of team? I feel like the Edinburgh North defense is a very good cover team, and that includes the linebackers. Those guys can all get out and run and get on the perimeter. As many people as you can put out in space, the better before Sharyland gets there. See, the thing is, you want to prevent a team from doing what it likes to do. So if it wants to throw those routes, then you have to not even jump those routes. You have to put people out there. I'm not saying a dime package or a nickel, but don't be surprised to see Edinburgh North drop some ends and do some funny business. Here's the other thing. You know as well as I do, it's hard to get pass pressure against a quarterback in the spread, right? So what do you have to do?
Well, you know, that's one thing that Diego Chrysler is. He's more pocket than he is run. So if you can, you know, force your ends to keep everything inside, and I don't know. Do you send somebody else after him? Do you bring a corner in?
I'll tell you what you have to do. It's in my opinion, and of course, you know, I just fell off the turnip truck last night to get here. You have to make sure that they don't get a chance to complete the first progression of throws. So if the kid has to wait a beat and go to the second guy, that's when a pass rush becomes more effective. North has amazingly quick ends. Their defensive tackle is super fast, but you can't rush the passer in the spread if it's snap and throw, snap and throw. So what you got to do is have that first throw not happen. Then you can get pressure on the quarterback. I think Sharyland, like you said, is going to run the ball. See, if we think that North is going to do this and that, then I feel Sharyland is like 4 steps ahead of us. They will anticipate that. I predict they'll run the ball quite a bit more than you see. Although, see, here's the funny thing. Sharyland does run the ball. If you look at their stats, they don't have a guy with 1,500 yards. But they'll get 150 yards a game or 100 yards. They'll let each guy carry 5 or 6 times. Laredo will carry, Michael will carry, the quarterback will carry. So they run in a different way than your traditional pound it with Saul Cuellar 43 times. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But they will run the ball.
Well, and I think on the other side of the ball, Sharyland's defense.
Underrated, man. Yeah. Underrated.
They're going to stop the big plays, or they're going to try to stop the big plays by Whitesides.
Whitesides was ridiculous the other night against Fairleigh. He's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. If you can stop him, if you can hold him from a big run, that's going to limit Edinburgh North's scoring options because they've had issues in the past with their quarterback play.
I'll tell you what, Whiteside's had 287, 3 touchdowns. The problem is that Adrian Alvarez went down with a knee injury. I'm not quite sure whether he'll be able to play, and I'm not a doctor, although actually I am one, but kind of the dumb kind, not the kind that make money. I hope Adrian's able to play because not only do I want to see him get a chance to play in a big game, but it makes North all the more dangerous. Now, talk about weapons and game breakers. Sharyland's got a bunch of guys who can take it to the house. Their punt returns have been incredible. Justin Harris, who is this character? He's going twice to the house every game these days.
Yeah, and that's the one thing Sharyland and both Edinburgh North, they have a great special teams program. I think what you're going to see is there's going to be a couple kick returns or a couple punt returns that you're like, you just set them up for at least a field goal.
How do you handle kicking to Landes? And the kid is a baseball player, Alex Chavez for North, had some nice returns. Do you see the problem is if you try to kick away from somebody, you're going to kick out of bounds, or you're going to hold it too long and get it blocked. You almost have to just cover. But it's hard to kick away from somebody.
Yeah.
And if you do, you take other risks. I think there are so many factors upon which you can base who's going to win this game. Sharyland's defending champion, right? Edinburgh North is playing at home, right? I don't see a real discernible edge. I still feel like you have to beat the champ to become the champ. And so right now, I would say Sharyland is probably the tiniest of favorites.
Yeah, I would think so too. But having said that, Edinburgh North and Sharyland, it's going to be a gritty game. It's going to be Edinburgh North likes to hit. And that's the one thing. If they hit harder than Sharyland and they turn it into a possession brawl, long drives.
Each team faces the possibility of real exhaustion. Okay, Edinburgh North defense is going to get tired running and chasing and trying to find all those receivers, but Sharyland is going to be fatigued in another way, aren't they? Maybe, but potentially.
Imagine, if you're the defensive lineman right across from Montalduo and the offensive line for Edinburgh North, you're going to get pounded.
Or if you have to sit there in the hole and try to block Joey Esquivel, or if you have to block Lupe Quintero, who, by the way, in my opinion, number 9, there's no better linebacker in the Valley. I've seen him make all kinds of plays. Those linebackers, I'm telling you, they can cover, they can run, they can hit. They will try to beat down Sharyland physically. Sharyland will try to physically, with speed and with finesse and with precision, just wear down Edinburgh North. It's going to be one of the best games in many years.
Yeah, I think so too. This is going to be what Sharyland used to be like in 35A with the McAllens.
Yeah.
You're going to see a contrast in teams.
Absolute contrast in styles. My last comment is, can North score with Sharyland? Because if their defense, I don't see Sharyland scoring less than 21 points.
Yeah.
But I see them scoring as many as 35. That means Edinburgh North, in order to win, is going to have to break some big plays. You keep an eye on 10, Matt Ramirez, man, out the Wildcat. He made an interception on defense. That guy is a game breaker. He's the Landes of Edinburgh North.
Yeah, I think so too. Edinburgh North is going to have to put up points. That's all there is to it.
And if they don't and they still win, then they're the best team in the Valley. If they win 20-10 against Sharyland, in other words, if they can hold Sharyland, they'll do something that people haven't done for years, because that team is explosive and consistently fantastic.
Yeah, we'll have to change the polls next week.
Probably so. All right, well, let's stick in that district, though, and talk about Donna and Economides, because that's 1 and 2. It's going to be 1 and 2 after North and Sharyland. Donna and Economides can take care of business. They can both make the playoffs. Vela on the outside looking in. They've had a wonderful season. They're 5 and 4. They may come up short, though, in the postseason.
Yeah, it's and it's conceivable that Economides could beat Donna. I think last year, you'd probably think differently with Donna's team. Yeah. But this year's team they've got their faults, they've got their weaknesses, and I think Economides is
6 and 2.
Well.
6 and 2, playing well, ran the ball well. The thing is, I think it's closer in talent levels than it has been in past years. As long as one team will lose, and they will have 3 losses. That means they have to turn around and win the next week. Neither team has a really tough opponent. So unless something crazy happens, we're looking at Donna, Economides. I read in the paper, I was looking at the playoff matchups. It hasn't been decided in 21-5. Let me tell you very briefly about the Laredo district this year. United and Alexander are 4-0. They play November 9th, which is a Saturday. Right now, Del Rio and Eagle Pass are scheduled to play November 1st. They're tied. And United South is probably going to make it because they're 2 and 3. They'll get to 3 and 3 if they beat Wynn, which is another Eagle Pass team. Bottom line is the loser of Del Rio and Eagle Pass is out. And then whoever the winner is, will probably play North in the small school. Yeah. Sharyland is probably going to get United South, I think, right? Mm-hmm. If United South makes it, they'll be a big school.
Yeah.
Which would give Donna United, which is a tough game, and it would give Economides the toughest first-round muster, Alexander. And these things are subject to change, but that's the way we see it. So anybody telling you that Del Rio is in or out, already. That's not true. They play Eagle Pass November 1st, and that game will decide the district standing.
Yeah. And it's, you know, what I like to see is an Alexander team who, at the beginning of the year, Sharyland.
They've been in our narrative a lot, haven't they?
And they've got a team, Skaggs, Swain.
They're tough.
So they have guys over there.
Look, but that district is -7 wins, losses for the year total. It ain't that good this year, so we should be able to clean up on those cats. I'm not saying we're going to beat them all, but boy, wouldn't that be nice. Sorry about that, Laredo. I know you're watching. I give you all the chances in the world, but I got to root for my homeboys, man.
Yeah.
All right, so that's District 35A. Who are we supposed to go to now? Oh,
Christian Martinez.
the Scholar Athlete of the Week, Christian Martinez. Not only does he go up and down the field and jump and leap tall buildings in a single bound, but he apparently does his homework pretty well, too. Let's see.
Christian is, I always use him as an example of perseverance. I mean, we're talking about a kid that in junior high was a B team player. And you look at him now and he's really come a long way. The ability level's always been there. You know, we're talking about a kid that is a complete package. Physically, with his football talent, he's a 3-sport athlete, and also does real well in the classroom. And apart from that, is just a good leader. He's one of our team captains.
Christian Martinez not only does well in school, he's also part of the Meet in the Middle Club, an organization that tries to bridge the gap between special ed kids and the general student population.
They just enjoy everything from a simple hello to a hug. I mean, everything means the world to them. And if you're having a bad day or something, it can really brighten your day.
The special ed students have recently been on the sidelines with the football team and even run out onto the field with the players.
Every Friday they're out on the sidelines and they come out of the tunnel with us and they love it. Like, that's all they talk about. Like, it could be the fourth quarter and they're like, did you see how I ran out of the tunnel today? And
Martinez is a senior and hoping to someday study medicine.
I'm a big science fanatic, so I just want to do something in the medical field to help people.
Christian Martinez, the South Texas College Scholar Athlete of the Week.
Okay, 31-5A. Right now, McAllen took control in the driver's seat with a good win over Weslaco. They got a big lead, were impressive, and they held on at the end to win by 5.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about how Mackay's only winning by a certain margin, you know, less than 10 sometimes. And I'm sitting there going, hey, they're winning games and they're grinding it out. They're you know, Weslaco was no easy victory.
No, man, not at all, especially coming off that big win over East. I just think Weslaco or McAllen's a little bit different than some of the other teams. They're a lot more like Edinburgh North, to me. A grinded out, old-fashioned football team, whereas Harlingen South and Harlingen to an extent, and certainly Sharyland, they're modern teams. They're spread teams. They're quicker, more teams that are a little more flashy. But McAllen's a very solid club. Now they get to see what they can do against Memorial. Now, before you comment, I'll say that Memorial's had McAllen's number the last couple of years. They won 3 in a row and 6 out of 9. If Memorial wins now, they'll be in good shape because they're 3-3. They need to win.
Well, see, and this is a different Mackay team than in the past, because in the past they've been a spread team. This is a more 2 tight end set. You know, it's a different beast for Memorial to match up with, because they don't have.
Yeah, they're not gonna be like those teams of the past, but they do have Kevin Hilgenfeld, whose name I love to say, 67-yard touchdown, man. That guy's the X factor, the hidden ingredient in that product, man.
Yeah, and you know, you've got Hover, who's almost like another running back, you know, to go along with Rodriguez.
And 11 out of 13 passing. And like I said, he throws as much as he needs to. If it's 25, fine. If it's 10, fine. McAllen's looking good. Now, Memorial had that crazy game. 59 first downs. East and them combined.
4 tackles.
4 tackles the entire game. Yeah, and 2 of them were at halftime, I think. Yeah, it was amazing. Boy, if it's a DC's nightmare. The kid was amazing. Saul Cuellar was amazing. Gabe Alonso is the wild card because he had 200 yards. That kid is really looking good right now. He's running the ball with authority. And I'll tell you what, he's slimmed down a little bit and he's running hard, and that gives him another weapon. You don't have a game where 2 guys rush for over 200 yards. That's insane. And they led 7 times and still lost. It was just one of those games that it may not happen again in 10 years.
Yeah.
Or 20 minutes. Who knows?
And that's the thing for Mackay. They're going to have to figure out who's getting the ball, because they got to figure out. I mean, and the thing with Spates, and you'll see some highlights as we're talking. The way he just, there's that one play, he broke about 4 people's ankles and then just kept running.
In like a space of 8 or 10 yards. He's so efficient and so talented, you just can't get a good hit on him. So what Memorial has to try to do is stop him early, because if he has a chance to set his hips and look at you, you might as well forget it. It's going to be interesting to see if they can keep the ball away from Memorial, because McAllen will grind the ball down the field. McAllen will keep the ball, and then they'll make a few passes. That would be their ingredient, I think, is to have ball control control because Memorial can score. They can score as well as anybody in the Valley.
Yeah, and you know, we talk about those traditional teams, you know, like Mac High and stuff like that. Memorial's like that.
Oh, yeah.
The difference is they can hand it off to Spates, and Spates can go 90 yards.
He's unbelievable. I mean, he's unbelievable. I'm trying to pick my everything team, and
You said he's more like who?
Who?
Who'd you say that Spates?
Oh,
was like?
he looks like Tim Brown. Remember for the Raiders how he would slalom and do this? He's just an amazing player. Just think, he's starting to look like a man. He ain't but 16 years old. He's going to be a junior next year. I think the sky is the limit for him. I don't know where he can go, but if I was a D1 school, I'd be certainly looking at him. He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so Memorial has to win, or they're going to face that last game against PSGA at 3-4. Okay. Well, and here's the thing: we were talking about before we came on. There's a possibility there could be 4 teams tied next week at 3-4 because you got Weslaco with 1 loss, McAllen is undefeated, East forged ahead at 4-2, but the rest of the pack, man, Memorial and PSJ have 3 losses apiece. PSJ plays Weslaco. That is no easy mustard.
No, and Weslaco was going to be looking for some kind of revenge for what happened.
You don't
last
want to
week.
play one of those teams. You don't want to play that team after they lost. But see, I like PSJ. And you were saying something interesting. It's not just the defense for PSJ, although it's a fine unit. 161 yards against San Benito.
Yeah, and I've had people that tell me that it's not Marroquin's offense; it's his defense that's leading the way. I'm sitting there going, they're scoring.
They're scoring.
And they're not, they're doing it with the pass, they're doing it with the run.
Did you see Fili? We watched Fili Patino, man. That's the track guy. When he gets upright, you can forget it. He's going. He had 200 yards, man.
Great zone blocking, and then they have a trackster.
Oh man, he's fast.
Yeah, just let him go. I mean, just look, you put a hat on somebody, let him go.
And Nathan Cifuentes is another guy who's going to be back next year. Cifuentes, Bobby Guajardo. You watch out for the Bears next year. I ain't saying they're not going to make it this year, but I think they're going to be right up at the top of the charts next year. So PSJ, Weslaco, Memorial, Mac High. If those 2 teams lose, PSJ and Memorial, then they play each other last week at 3-4. Rowe is 2-4, but they got games against sub 500s. They could be 3-4. San Benito is 3-4 with an off week, and then who they play last? They finish at Weslaco. It's going to be nuts. You can pencil in Weslaco. You can pencil in McAllen. I believe East has a reasonably favorable schedule, and they have a game, or actually, 1 game ahead of 2 of those teams. I think East is going to make it. 4 teams fighting for 1 spot at the maximum. At the minimum, 2. That's a great district.
Yeah, it's what we like to see at least at the end of the season.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is going to be crazy, and the only thing I'm watching out for in the back of my mind is how they're going to match up with 32-5A. We're about to go down south and talk about 3 teams that have a real leg up on the others, and a bunch of guys who are scrambling for that 4th spot. Who in the world is going to emerge in Brownsville? We're going to talk about 32-5A in a minute. But for now, speaking of McAllen and their 8-0 record, Coach of the Week this year, or Coach of the Week this week. I screw that up every week. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I just can't say that. We're going to have to work on that. Anyway, Kevin Brewer from McAllen High. If I had to vote right now, I would have to say Kevin Brewer, Michael Salinas, or Marty Salar at Edcow's done a great job. There's about 3 or 4 or 5 guys, but Kevin Brewer to me is the front runner. Let's see what he has to say about his McAllen Bulldogs.
Well, I tell you what, it was a balanced effort, all 3 phases, offense, defense, special teams. We got up early, and I told the kids at halftime, I said, guys, this is a very good football team we're playing. They're very highly motivated. I said, be ready for a surge here coming out of the half, and I knew it was coming. Weslaco's got too much pride and tradition, and I knew they were going to, get fired up at halftime, and sure enough, they did. They came out, and I told them to weather the storm. Every head coach, beginning of the year, everybody wants to go undefeated. We all know that that's not a realistic deal. But I'll tell you what I did expect is for these kids to play hard and compete, and that's what they've been doing. We've just been very fortunate to be able to win some games late, and we're very fortunate to be where we're at. But being 8-0 is not something that we set out to do. But we approach every game, every week with the intent of winning, and it just so happens we've stacked 8 of them, in a row.
Well, ever since the early 90s when these schools split, this game has meant something. It's always been emotional. It's always been competitive. This year, there's a whole lot riding on the line in Bird Bowl, Jake.
Yeah, there is. And unlike last year, I think everybody's just surprised that Harlan South was there. This year, it was kind of expected.
Yeah, I think so.
I think everybody kind of knew that this was a possibility, and they're both playing their best football right now.
Maybe some people are even anticipating them being ahead of Harlingen at this stage in the season, but the Cardinals have a little magic going on there. So now you get South against Harlingen, the district title partially on the line, because South still has to play Los Fresnos, and that team is 6 and something, 6-2, 5-1 district. You know, in other words, that's not an easy muster, and it's down at Los Fresnos the last week of the season, so they got the twofer right here. South is about to be tested. Now, I feel like they have enough weapons to win the big game. I feel like the defense is intact. What do you think some of the X factors or wild cards are when it comes to the Hawks?
Well, for the Hawks, I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be Jaden Taylor.
He's looking good, man.
Yeah, he's slimmed down. He looks great. Fast. He's breaking tackles. You see that in the highlights. Somebody's just grabbing his jersey. He's just like, okay, I'm going to just
It's not fair. He's got to be 190. That guy's phenomenal. I noticed he had a catch for 40 yards, too. So will they find a way to get him out in the open and throw him the ball? I mean, who's going to try to hang all over him? I think the game is going to be phenomenal. Harlingen probably has as many game breakers on defense as you can ask for. But any team with Nick Garcia, to me, probably the MVP of the district, and that's Harlingen South. He's a phenomenal player. Jaden's a phenomenal player. So offensively, they may have a few bigger stars. Although, again, I'm singing the praises of Brandon Vasquez because that guy is unstoppable lately for Harlingen. He's been amazing.
Yeah, and I think what you see is between both quarterbacks, they have options. They they can throw just about anybody. I think what you're going to see is whoever can spread the field out enough so they can start a running game. And
the running game at South is Jaden Taylor and Quiros a bit. But the running game in Harlingen is your name here, fill in the blank. It was Davila this week, Robert Davila, 100 yards. Every week they have another guy come off the bench and have a great game. So they don't need to have one guy get 250. They get 3 guys, 40 here, 60 here, 80 here. It's like Sharyland. They will run the ball more than you think. But Brandon got us 8 of 9, 4 touchdowns against Porter. That just wasn't fair, man.
Yeah.
Mercy rule.
Yeah.
Which is the dumbest thing that's ever been invented, but that's all right.
And he's Adam Smith-like with the ball. Because he just, put the ball into people's hands and let them.
Wealth of Nations, 1776.
Yeah.
Or Alex Smith, Adam Smith. This guy's a teacher in high school. He's breaking up. He's breaking up economics.
History teacher.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
I'm like, really?
Sorry.
I wanted to hear that one, Jake. I'm like, this is going to be good.
No. He's like,
He's like a John Locke out there.
Dang, I had that book in my room.
That's incredible.
No, Alex Smith. Because if you think about it, he just puts the ball in the right spots. Because he's just putting it there. And he's letting his team, make plays with the ball afterward. Now. Can he throw the ball? Yes.
Oh man, great arm.
But he's very consistent with the ball. He's very responsible.
Smooth, man. The ball comes to people in the right place, and off they go. Here's my opinion, for 2 cents for what it's worth. The game has always come down to who's going to be the toughest. And so Harlingen has held an edge in the series, mainly not because they don't have good athletes, but they are the meaner kids, right? Generally speaking. I would submit though that this year the balance in terms of who's tough and mean and kind of ornery, South is not a team that's not ornery. I feel like they have some certain amount of mean, and so if they can come out and hit and take the fight to Harlingen, I think it can win.
Yeah, and this is just like the North Sharyland game where you have really good defenses. And you're going to see basically whoever's offense
executes better, right? Doesn't turn the ball over.
Here's one thing I see. Harlingen's special teams are extraordinary.
Yeah. I mean, the Virginia Tech of the Valley.
Yeah, I mean, because they're blocking punts, they're blocking kicks. They're doing just about everything you can ask a special teams to do. I think that's where you're going to see the
that's a difference.
Plays.
Well, I'll tell you, Agaska for Harlingen has been playing great lately. The thing is, as I say, I believe that we're going to see whether the Hawks have what it takes to go in there and smash Harlingen in the mouth. Because, you don't generally do that to a Manny Gomez team. And so the phrase I like to use, and of course, since we're on the web, we can say this, and coaches will agree with me 100%, you always need a couple of positive turds on your team. Not guys who are going to go rob a liquor store and be punks and get you in trouble, but guys that are just kind of ornery. Guys will just want to hit somebody that are going to hit you maybe just after the whistle to prove a point. In other words, you need some enforcers and some tough guys who are going to get your team going. I think South has a handful of those guys on defense.
Yeah. What I see is, and even this is, I guess, before Coach Gomez came into Harlingen, even with Sean Messick's team, Harlingen I just felt was always the tougher team.
Yeah, South was smooth. They were very efficient, and in fact, it is kind of like the Sharyland game. Is Sharyland tough enough to deal with that physical North team? Is South tough enough to deal with that opportunistic, kind of nasty, tough Harlingen team? You couldn't get better games, Jake. You just couldn't get better games this week.
All I know is you better get there early.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're not going to be able to park at Cat Stadium, man. You're going to be at that call center or way back on the dirt road. Forget it.
Or Bogus.
Indeed, yeah. Bogus Stadium's going to be. I always love to go over there, though it looks very different on the Highlands. Like, I'm going to miss the grass, but that's all right. No big deal. I'll still be able to manage. Now, the rest of the group, Los Fresnos is right there, man. They're 5-1. They got Porter, and then they have South at home. So if the South wants to win district, they're going to have to beat Harlingen and beat Los Fresnos. I feel like they're capable. I'm not going to predict that they will, but I feel like this is the best chance they've had in many years to take out the Cardinals, and the Cardinals don't want that to happen, man. There's more pride at stake and more, inter-city rivalry than in almost anywhere.
And I think that Harlingen has been kind of eyeing this all season, and I think what happened last year, and I know they won last year, but I think they're on a mission to basically set the tone as far as we're back.
We're the team.
Yeah.
Not them. Everybody's talking about South this, South that. Harlingen's kind of gone under the radar a little bit. I think we've probably given them equal billing here. By the way, I used to live in Harlingen. You know that?
Yeah.
Way back in the day. But I didn't cover either one. I covered San Benito. Boy, if you think that made me unpopular in town, you're correct. It was terrible. I mean, I enjoyed it, but boy, nobody could ever forgive me. You're the guy that covered San Benito. I had to try to tell them that I'd never heard of any of these places before I moved down there, and I have no bias whatsoever. Whatever. All right. So who's going to emerge, though, as that last team? Because Los Fresnos is in.
Yeah.
Harlingen's in. South is in. Hanna had it in their hands, and they had a little hiccup, didn't they?
Yep.
Yeah, well.
Rivetto's looking decent.
They are looking good. They got a lot of yards, man. Evans had 205. Chris Montes, see the game he had? 75-yard touchdown, a 5 for 112 or some such, man. That guy, they got game breakers.
Yeah. And Harlingen South took out Lopez last week, but I mean, it's a hard matchup for Lopez.
Sure it is. And Lopez still has a chance at 2-4. I think they're 2-4. Oh, yeah, 2-4. If they win their last two, they're going to figure in the race because they play Rivetta and some of these other teams. There ain't no way of knowing what's going to happen with those crazy cats. But I'll tell you what, one of them is going to be making the playoffs, and I can't wait to see who it is. Hey, you might be looking at Harlingen and Memorial if things work out right in the playoffs. Yeah, a rematch of that, huh? We're too early to start talking, but it may be South and East. Well, I say it's too early to start talking, and then I start talking. That's just the way we work here because we have no boundaries, no standards, no scruples at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
So. Now, what are we going to now? A commercial, you said? We have commercials on this thing?
Yes.
I thought it was HBO. We didn't have commercials. The show is here, and we're going to be here through the playoffs, so we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, let's go to 4A. Well, man, it was another outstanding effort between Mercedes and EdCats. That game is always exciting, usually competitive, and the Yellow Jackets got a big play from Diego Garcia, one of my favorite players, talking about unbiased, but I do happen to feel he's very, very elusive, very talented player. He ran an interception back 40 yards for a touchdown, lengthened the lead. 20-17 was the final. Jackets unbeaten and only giving up 12 points a game.
Yeah, and it was one of those games where I actually thought that it was going to be an ugly game for Mercedes.
Really?
And I knew that the rivalry was there and stuff like that, but I just figured Ed Couch was going to steamroll, and they didn't.
No, they didn't.
It was very surprising that Mercedes, they showed composure, especially on a night with that much,
emotional stuff.
I just figured, okay, this is going to be one of those letdown games.
It's hard to keep your focus when you have something crazy like that happening. I'll tell you what, though, it must be the 9.56 kiss of death. Because I said Mercedes is running the ball well. They pick up 29 yards on the ground against EdCats. Luckily, Big Presses at 280. They hung in there. That's a good effort. Mercedes, I believe, is still going to make the playoffs. In fact, did they clinch? If Rio clinched, then they should have clinched. Yeah, I think those teams are all in.
Yeah, but the one thing is, I actually think that this actually helps Mercedes as far as confidence-wise because
they play. I hear you.
Everybody was thinking that Ed Couch was, was
the juggernaut.
Yeah, they're going to roll through everybody, and they really haven't. Not with Mercedes.
No, 20-17. Okay, so Mercedes turns around and plays a Roma team that is fighting its way back into the race. If Roma wins here, they're looking good because they have Valley View to finish. Now, at 2-3 are Roma, Vets, and Mission are all 2-3. You think Roma can beat Mercedes?
Yeah, I think they can, but if Mission's defense plays the way they did against Vets, it's a different story.
Yeah.
But Orly Solis is the deciding factor in that.
He's really good. Boy, is it a great year of running backs in the Valley. Solis and Whitesides and the kid and you name it. Jaden Taylor, fill in the blank for Harlingen. I got to make that into some kind of story. Oh, did I tell you? Did I mention that I came up with a nickname for Whitesides already?
What's that?
And I didn't get a chance to write it in the story because I was too stupid that night. His number 8. He's Crazy 8. Remember the Crazy 8s, the card game? You have to be about 40-something to remember that card game. So I'm going to throw it out there and see if it works. Crazy 8s, man. That guy is something else. Okay, so Mercedes, Roma wins. They're probably going to make the playoffs. Veterans and Rio. Rio is in. Veterans is one of those 2 and 3 teams. Boy, they had a tough outing last week.
Well, they're up 14-0. Looks like Santos broke his foot, got stepped on.
Man.
So, he's going to be out this week. So,
7 turnovers.
Yeah, it's a different Vets team.
It is. Mission had 4 defensive touchdowns. Boy, when they crank up the defense, Coach, they also had like 150 yards in penalties. Mission is, that's a lovely group. I love that team because they play old-fashioned football. Forget about targeting. Every kid, they have targets. And I don't mean that in a negative way. So, bottom line is this. Mission can make it, okay? They have Vets. If they beat them, they did beat them. They have PSD Southwest or Mercedes. So that Mission-Mercedes game in the last game of the season is going to be important.
And see, if I'm looking at games to compare Mercedes and Mission, is the Ed Couch game.
Yeah.
Mission didn't really pose a threat to Ed Couch, and Mercedes was hung with them. So I think the edge has to go to Mercedes for that last game.
I think so. I think Mercedes is a quality club, and if they beat Mission, then Mission might be on the outside looking in. Now, if you're pondering, like I ponder on a weekly basis, Flower Bluff and Alice are the small school teams, and guess what? They're both pretty good this year. There's only 1 loss between them. Flower Bluff beat Alice 27-26. So Ed Couch and Mercedes, they're the small schools. They're looking at tough games in the first round of the playoffs. Man, it's tough to be a 4A in the Valley because the Coastal Bend, they used to call it the Coastal Bend Jinx, but we're starting to level the playing field. But it's the Coastal Bend Challenge these days. Let's just call it that.
Yeah, as long as you're not playing Cal-Allen, you're okay.
This is true, and that's not until round 2 probably. So that's the 4A picture. And right now, speaking of Mercedes, there's been a lot of talk and news and ink spilt over the crisis involving Isaiah Garza, and we don't want to beat a dead horse but the bottom line is it's a compelling story. We love the kid and we hate what happened to him. So he came back at the right time, and he was able to be a big part of that rivalry between Ed Couch and Mercedes. So let's kind of take a look at that. I feel like it's really worth seeing.
Isaiah Garza, beloved by Mercedes for his play on the field and leading the Tigers to a district championship last season, returns to Tiger Stadium Friday night. Wearing a black game jersey like his teammates, he finally has the opportunity to wear his number 5 and be on the field. He is on the roster as well, as he has been all season long, and is named captain for the game. Fans of all ages greet Isaiah and wish him well as he hangs out with friends and family under the scoreboard before the game. Isaiah is hoping for a good performance from his teammates.
All right, Isaiah. Tell me a little bit, how does it feel to come back onto the field? I know it's been a while. What's going through your mind right now?
Pretty much a lot, but it feels good to be back on the field, see my friends play and everything. Hopefully we get the win tonight.
As the Tigers come out onto the field, they touch Isaiah's rock, which now sits outside the locker room, paying tribute to their quarterback. The game is a sellout for this battle for first place in 32-4A, but people are here for more than just the game. They are here to see and support Isaiah as he makes his first public appearance since his accident in August. As Isaiah and his teammates meet the Yellow Jackets at midfield, media from all over the valley are there to document his return.
Different cameras out there, flashes all around to capture this historic moment in Mercedes.
That's truly a testament to the character of this young man and the impact that he made on this game over the last couple of seasons.
After the coin flip, the entire team from Ed Couch joins their captains to wish Isaiah well.
To see this is overwhelming, I think, not only for ourselves, but for his family and the community of Mercedes as well.
For the fans, they're standing on their feet for both teams, as Ed Couch showing a lot of class coming over to greet Isaiah as he's back on the field. Usually there's a lot of chest pumping and maybe some intimidation going back and forth. Not in this game. This one has a different type of feel to it.
Most definitely, very humbling game.
Isaiah joins his teammates one more time as they enter the field. He receives a standing ovation on an emotional night in Mercedes. Carlos Romero, 956sports.com.
Well, it's hard to talk about 3A football in the Valley without beginning with Port Isabel. 9-0, number 9, got 1 game left against Rio Hondo. They can be 10-0 in the regular season for the first time since 1994. And if you remember correctly, or I think I may have told you, you were probably in diapers back then in '94. They went a long way with Coach Tony Villarreal and his nephew, I think it was, Gabe Villarreal at quarterback. That was a great team. So how far can they go this year? Well, it starts the next 2 weeks, clinch the district championship, go 10-0, and then see what the playoffs hold. The rest of the group is looking a little bit iffy. I don't know who's going to make it.
Yeah, you know what, and a lot of people, we have PI as our #1 team usually every week. Well, since the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
So, we've had them there. And if you haven't seen their line,
they're huge for a 3A.
75, 70. You see them on their runs. They're running with the running back. They're 30 yards down the field.
Classic. Those guys boogie, man.
Yeah, and a lot of people, especially a lot of our 5A fans, think that PI isn't worth the #1. But if you haven't, their line's huge. Man. They've got players, and look, they're a 3A team, but they're a huge 3A team.
They really are a big team, so I don't expect them to get much challenge in the first couple of rounds of the playoffs, but you never know. I'm looking at this 31 3A to switch districts on us. Gruya and Zapata. Now, I have to go on record as saying that I underrated Zapata because I started looking back at the teams that they played. They played a bunch of good teams, man. I mean, where is their schedule? They play Alexander, Veterans, Nixon, who, by the way, is good this year with the defense, Port Isabel. So they may have had a poor record. I think I said 1 win. They're now 4-5. See, I was just totally wrong on Zapata. They put a whooping on Raymondville. Now they're going to go after Gruya.
Yeah.
In Zapata.
In Zapata, yeah. So, and I think what Gruya is going to have to do is, they're going to have to squeak this one out. Because I think Zapata, especially with their running game, I think they're going to pose a threat because they're going to eat up clock.
Yeah, and they feel like they're on a roll right now. So I may have thought Zapata was crummy, but they sure didn't think so.
Yeah.
It shows what I know. What the heck, right? I think Gruya still gets by them. Now, Hidalgo and Progreso. Progreso, we were on that bandwagon earlier. They've kind of hit a slow stretch in the season. Now's a chance to get back on deck. But I'll tell you what, man, Hidalgo's not bad.
Yeah, and they've got a chance because they beat Rio Hondo earlier. They've got a good chance right now to go, get their second win of the district.
And that will probably ensure a playoff spot, the way it works out.
Which is crazy because
it is crazy.
That you wouldn't have thought that at the beginning.
No, they were not doing much at all, and now they're doing something at the right time, though, right? Fantastic. Now, La Villa, having won 6 in a row, do you realize they've scored 68 points in back-to-back games, 68 and 68? The Cardinals are really playing well. Lupe Maron is another guy, is a running back who doesn't get a lot of credit, but he's going to bust 1,000. In the stable of Valley Backs, there's about 10 or 15 kids who are really doing well. That guy deserves some credit.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's a shame that we're not able to get out to these smaller games. I wish we could, but I mean, there's so much talent there.
Robert Sedden, the quarterback, is actually having a better year on defense. I heard he's just cleaning up, tackling everybody in sight. So La Villa is looking great. They play Santa Maria. I think they're off. Then they got Santa Maria, and it's on to the playoffs for them. Now, Santa Rosa, we were talking about this big matchup with Mathis. Mathis turned around and got whooped 34-7 by Odom, an average team, and so now Santa Rosa can win that district.
Yeah.
What do you know about the Warriors?
I know. I mean, how about that? I mean, especially with Santa Rosa losing to La Villa earlier in the year, you're just
Yeah, and when La Villa wasn't playing that great, you're like, God, are either of these teams that good? Well, the bottom line is both teams are that good.
Yeah.
I mean, both teams are good. Santa Rosa finishes at Bishop. Now, Bishop is 0-4, but they've always had some athletes, so you can't count your chickens yet until they're hatched. But Santa Rosa and La Villa both win district titles.
Yeah. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention St. Joe's real quick. If you haven't had a chance to see them, I think they played their last game at home, right?
Yeah, well, they got, let's see, St. Joe's on my list. They got winless Corpus Christi St. Paul. Get this, 0 points scored, 364 allowed. I would hate to have to be them defending the Adrians and Olvera and all those guys. I found out that they got a safety that has 73 tackles already. Daniel Matar, he's a junior. I like St. Joe. They're going to play Central Catholic as that last game that will determine whether or not they advance.
Yeah, and if you haven't had a chance, go watch a game. I haven't had a chance, but I do have a chance to look at their huddle account. Thank you, by the way. They have some players. And you know what? They play most of Saturdays. So
yeah, one of these days we got to get.
It's a shame that we haven't been able to go out there.
Well, we got to get off our tails and get to more games. Although I got to tell you, man, I think we're doing about as much as we can humanly do. Bottom line is this: the show, Greg Selber, Jake Berry, the 2 greatest games of the season are happening this week, Thursday and Friday. You stick near the TV or the radio or the smoke signals or whatever and try to figure out who wins those games. We'll be back next week to tell you what we thought about those games and preview the last week of the season before we get ready for the playoffs. You want to give us a shout out to the sponsors, friend?
Yes, I'd like to thank the Payne Auto Group, South Texas College, and McDonald's for making this happen.
Well, I thought McDonald's was going to send us over some McRibs or McFish or whatever it's called.
I'm on a diet right now. So.
I understand. McCool. All right, so that's all we got. See you next week.